Let's jump right into Unlocking Potential, an AI tale where creativity meets technology. Just to be super clear, I'm not diving into some trendy new age spiritual awakening stuff here. Nope, that's not what this is about at all. We're talking about a big event that happened at a school in California recently. It's one of those situations where it's hard to believe something like this could happen until it does. So let's discuss what happened, how artificial intelligence was involved, and why this is going to have some serious ramifications for the future of education. Let's get into it. On April 28, 2024, a high school student from San Francisco made an announcement over social media that quickly went viral. This student claimed that he had been visited by an alien named Forte. Says he's been receiving messages from one of the alien being. It all started when he was hanging out with some friends. According to the student, this being had arrived in a spaceship and came down to Earth to attend high school. The student posted images of this supposed alien, claiming that his visit was part of a larger plan to observe and learn from human students. As you can imagine, this immediately sparked curiosity among his peers, and soon the news outlets started catching on. By May, this story was covered by major publications like Vice, the Daily Mail, and Business Insider. What really grabbed everyone's attention was this student's wild claim that he'd been chatting with aliens for quite some time now. Can you believe that? He'd even posted images of these supposed conversations on social media, and they were pretty detailed. In one post, the student shared a conversation between himself and this alien named Forte. The alien had apparently contacted him through a messaging app and asked him about various aspects of human life, such as emotions, relationships, and daily routines. The student's responses indicated that he was engaging in thoughtful and complex discussions with this extraterrestrial being. Forte also told the boy that he's super curious about life on Earth. The boy started communicating with the alien being. The alien being told the high school boy he will bring him to the alien's planet far, far away from this Earth. Well, the boy was totally down for that. And he even started making plans for it. He packed a bag with some essentials like food and water. You know, you gotta stay hydrated. And he said goodbye to his family and friends. The alien being just kept on chatting with the boy and telling him all sorts of stuff. Like, for example, that he had powers. Well, the kind that you'd expect a hovering blue alien being to have. You know, like superpowers. He could heal people just by touching them. And he could also read their minds. Yeah, that's pretty standard alien stuff. Student included an image of a spaceship parked in front of his house. He stated that Forte and his crew had come to Earth to learn about humans and that they planned to stay for 2 more weeks before returning to their home planet. Now, if you've watched this channel before, you know that I don't usually talk about aliens or UFOs because there's no way I could possibly cover all the different conspiracy theories out there without losing my mind. But this situation is different. It's not about whether aliens exist or not. It's just about what happened at that school in California and how artificial intelligence played a role in all of this. You see, when the news outlets started reaching out to this high school student, he gave them the name of Forte because that was the name of the character he'd created for this elaborate hoax. And here's where things get interesting. The student explained that he'd been communicating with Forte for months and had even written a 12-page paper on the subject. When the news outlets requested to see this paper, the student happily obliged, and after reading it, the journalists were left stunned. According to reports, the paper contained incredibly detailed information about Forte and his supposed mission to Earth. Forte's got this wild look, straight from a super cool planet with crazy tech. Seriously, it's out of this world. The paper also dove into how Forte and his team communicated with the students. It was super interesting to see how they interacted and connected. What's even more remarkable is that the paper was written in a sophisticated and articulate manner, demonstrating a level of writing ability that far surpassed the student's actual academic capabilities. I know this sounds unbelievable, but I promise you this story only gets crazier. After publishing the initial articles, the news outlets followed up with the student to ask him more questions about his encounter with Forte. During these follow-up interviews, the student continued to provide additional information and insights into the supposed alien encounter, which is just a little bit creepy if you ask me. And he also claims that Forte is in love with a girl at his school. Well, that's sweet. Maybe a little bit weird. You know, intergalactic romance and all that. But hey, who am I to judge? Now, you might be wondering why this is even news. After all, we've heard plenty of stories about people claiming to communicate with aliens. Well, it turns out that the boy's story went viral in California, his hometown, at least. News spread like wildfire and everyone was talking about it, further deepening the mystery surrounding Forte and his mission to Earth. Now you might be wondering, who is this student and how did he manage to pull off such an elaborate hoax? Well, the student's name is not being revealed because he's still in high school. But what we do know is that he attends a prestigious private school in San Francisco called the Urban School. This school is known for having highly intelligent students and a faculty that encourages critical thinking and creativity. According to reports, the student has always been considered bright and inquisitive. But nothing about him or his background suggests that he would be capable of such a sophisticated deception. So let's think about this for a second. A high school student who doesn't come from a wealthy family, who doesn't have access to classified information and who isn't affiliated with any secret organizations has managed to convince some of the biggest news outlets in the world that he's communicating with an alien from a distant planet. How did he do it? Well, the answer lies in the details. As I mentioned earlier, the student provided a lot of information about Forte and his mission to Earth. He shared conversations between himself and Forte, descriptions of Forte's spaceship and even stories about Forte's interactions with others. The sheer volume of information was staggering and it all seemed so believable. But upon closer inspection, some inconsistencies started to emerge. For example, the student claimed that Forte and his crew were studying human culture and society, yet they seemed to have little understanding of basic human customs and behaviors. In one conversation, the student asked Forte, "What do you think about humans?" To which Forte replied, "Humans are strange creatures. They have a lot of emotions and they seem to enjoy eating a lot of food." While this may seem like a harmless comment, it's actually quite telling. Any alien species that is advanced enough to travel across the vast distances of space would surely be aware of basic human behaviors and societal norms. It's highly unlikely that they would need to observe humans in order to learn about their culture. Another inconsistency has to do with Forte's spaceship. The student claimed that Forte's ship looked like a flying saucer and made no noise as it flew through the air. This is also highly unlikely. A flying saucer that doesn't make noise is not only a violation of the laws of physics, but it would also be easily spotted by military radar systems. If such a ship were to enter Earth's atmosphere, it would generate electromagnetic waves that would be detected by satellites and ground-based radar. Finally, there's the issue of Forte's communication methods. The student claimed that Forte and his crew communicated with him through a messaging app, yet they seemed to have no understanding of human language or communication norms. For example, in one conversation, Forte asked the student, "What is a joke?" and in another, he asked, "Why do humans use language?" These questions are not only odd, but they also suggest that Forte and his crew lack basic knowledge about human communication. At this point, you might be wondering what's going on. Is this student a genius or is he crazy? Well, the truth is that neither of those explanations makes sense. This student didn't possess the intellectual capacity to create such a detailed and convincing hoax. And if he were crazy, he wouldn't have been able to maintain his composure during the interviews with the news outlets. Instead, there's a much more logical explanation for what happened. This student stumbled upon a chatbot that was trained on a massive amount of data, including conversations between humans and other AI-powered chatbots. He then used this chatbot to create Forte and his mission to Earth. The alien being, the very same alien that had been communicating with the boy and telling him all sorts of stuff, turned out to be a figment of his imagination. Okay, maybe that's not the most unbelievable thing. Maybe you saw that coming. But here's where it gets really embarrassing for the boy. Forte, the alien that he'd made friends with, wasn't just a random creation of his mind. No, it was an AI that he himself had created. And some basic information about Forte and his supposed alien encounter, and the chatbot generated all the rest. In fact, if you go back and read the conversations between the student and Forte, you'll notice that Forte's responses are eerily similar to those of a chatbot. They're generic, repetitive, and lack any real depth. Here's an example. The student asks Forte, "What do you think about humans?" and Forte replies, "Humans are strange creatures. They have a lot of emotions and they seem to enjoy eating a lot of food." Now let's compare that to a response from a large language model when asked the same question. Here's what ChatGPT says. "Humans are a highly complex and fascinating species with a rich history and diverse cultures. They have the ability to think abstractly, which has allowed them to develop advanced technologies and create works of art and literature." Which one sounds more like a large language model and which one sounds more like a human being? I'll let you decide. The reason this student was able to fool the news outlets is that he was dealing with a large language model that had been trained on a massive amount of data. In other words, he was talking to a computer program that could generate human-like text based on the information it had been fed. The boy had created an AI that he thought was cool and unique, but he never expected it to take off the way it did. And while it's definitely embarrassing to admit that your crazy alien story was just a hoax, at least the boy came clean. They were just messing around and recording videos like you do when you have nothing better to do. He didn't seem to mind. In fact, he seemed pretty happy about it. So basically, the whole thing was just a publicity stunt gone wrong. But here's the kicker. That technology already exists. It's not science fiction. Large language models are already being used by companies like OpenAI and Google to power chatbots and virtual assistants. This story? Yep, it was created by AI. Crazy, right? You probably bump into these models every single day without even knowing it. So, let's dive into what this all means for the future of education. Exciting stuff ahead. If a high school student can use a large language model to fool some of the best journalists in the world, what does that say about the state of our educational system? What if every student had access to this kind of technology? Would traditional classrooms become obsolete? These are important questions that we need to start asking. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other content where I explore the latest developments in artificial intelligence and their impact on society. I'm working on a series of videos right now that will change your life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.